This is Akashvani. In the program Spotlight, now we bring you a discussion on Interim Budget 2024, Boosting Social Welfare. The participants are Surajit Gupta, Economic Analyst, and Harsh Ranjan, Anchor.
Union Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman has presented the Interim Union Budget for 24-25 on 1st of Feb, outlining a series of initiatives aimed at driving economic growth and enhancing social welfare. Under the mantra of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas and Sabka Vishwas and the approach of Sabka Prayas, the budget focuses on uplifting various segments of society, including the poor, women, youth and farmers. What is your opinion on the focus of the budget on welfare schemes, and how effective do you think these measures will be in addressing social and economic challenges?
If you look at it, the strategy of the government in the last 10 years, it has been very clear that the focus areas have to be the poor, the women, youth and Annadata, the four castes as the Prime Minister has said, and that's a very important part of the strategy of development. Added to this are the number of steps taken to provide basic necessities of life. These programs have been running in the past, but there are more announcements here now about how to go forward. This is an interim budget. In July, we will have a more comprehensive set of measures to carry these forward to ensure that the goal of reaching Viksit Bharat or a developed country by 2047 is realized.
30 crore Mudra Yojana loans given to women entrepreneurs, female enrollment in higher education gone up by 28%. In STEM courses, girls and women constitute 43% of enrollment, one of the highest in the world. And over 70% houses under PM Awas Yojana given to women from rural areas. This shows that the momentum for Nari Shakti has picked up in the last couple of years. How it is going to help for a sustained economic development and growth, in your opinion?
Well, gender equality is a very, very important part of the development strategy. There is a conscious effort to ensure the participation of women in the labor force. So unless you build these blocks, unless you provide the platform for education, for health, for women, and encourage them to join the workforce, that strategy will not work. So therefore, this added focus on building the platform for women to take advantage of the opportunities that are arising. So if you look at whether it is entrepreneurship, whether it is STEM courses, whether it is joining the forces, women are coming forward in large numbers to take advantage of the opportunities. So I think this is a very, very important component of the development strategy, and that will be the focus even in the months ahead and years ahead as we try to encourage women and increase their participation in the labor force.
And also, Lakhpati Didi Yojana, this has contributed a lot in the past couple of years. Now from 2 crore to 3 crore Didis will be made Lakhpati. How do you think these Lakhpati Didis will be going to contribute to the society for economic development?
This is also another key component of development in the rural areas. The self-help groups have emerged as development vehicles, and they have encouraged women entrepreneurship, and they continue to be an inspiration for developing the rural economy and creating employment as well. I think, again, the target is to create from 2 crores to 3 crores. I think more can be done on this aspect as the government tries to kind of push this development vehicle in the rural areas.
And there are few more welfare schemes, especially for women, the budget has seen. One of them is cervical cancer vaccination. This is equally important because if women of our country are in good health, they will definitely going to contribute to the society, isn't it?
I was coming to that point. In the number of announcements, it may seem very small, but if you look at the overall picture, it's a huge announcement, the vaccination of girls in the 9 to 14 years of age, because this is a huge problem, the cervical cancer across the country. And this can be prevented through vaccination to a large extent. And that is what the strategy is, to basically improve the health standards through a lot of initiatives. I'm sure this step will be implemented on a mission mode across the country and will yield the results that are needed.
And how would you assess the overall impact of this interim budget on the Indian economy, taking all aspects together?
It's a very, very cautious and restrained interim budget, and it's been kept very simple. We have several global challenges, including geopolitics. We have wars in Ukraine, in the Middle East. So what has been done is to play it safe and keep it simple without announcing any major big bang programs. The budget has stuck to fiscal consolidation. If you look at it, several commentaries praising the budget for showing restraint. And we will see more steps to shield the economy and ensure that the growth momentum is maintained. In the July budget, the Indian economy is growing at 7% against the backdrop of global uncertainty and a slowing global economy. So that's something credible, and that's something very, like the IMF has said, it's a bright spot. So I guess the budget has taken measures to ensure that this continuity is maintained and growth ensures prosperity for all.
Surojit, currently we are at 7% plus growth rate. In your opinion, how will you assess that the measures taken in this interim budget is likely to stimulate Indian economy growth further?
Several measures which have already been taken are playing out. If you see post-COVID recovery, it is very, very fast and swift recovery that the economy has shown because the domestic demand has played a huge role. The government support measures during COVID has helped several sectors weather the storm, and the fiscal consolidation path that the government has stuck to will also help the private sector to access the funds and start the investment cycle. So I'm sure and confident that the measures taken so far will help maintain this pace of growth for some years to come, which would help the economy realize the dream of reaching perhaps 7 trillion, like the Economic Review said, by 2030.
And if we look at some figures, DBT of rupees 34 lakh crore using PM Janadhan account led to saving of 2.7 lakh crore for the government. Also, PM Swanidhi provided credit assistance to 78 lakh street vendors. 2.3 lakh have received credit for the third time. PM Janman Yojana aiding to the development, particularly the vulnerable tribal groups. And PM Vishwakarma Yojana provides end-to-end support to artisan and craft people. How these social welfare schemes are going to contribute to the Indian economy in coming days?
So you talked about this saving from DBT. Imagine the amount of money that has gone out to the rural areas. Imagine the figures are there, the money in the Jan Dhan accounts. So I guess this has helped rural demand also. And people don't realize that cutting down using technology, cutting down middlemen and savings of the magnitude that you mentioned, that has been mentioned in the budget as well, is amazing, is huge. You don't realize the scale until you see the numbers. So I guess it's an important part to you of the strategy to use technology to ensure savings and faster delivery of public services, financial inclusion. So these are steps for all-round development, and I guess what is known as inclusive development, these are important components of that, and they will have a huge role in the growth process as we move ahead.
You see, one very important aspect of this interim budget has been the fiscal management. How do you view the fiscal management strategies employed in this budget, considering the economic conditions and challenges?
Definitely, this is very, very important aspect of the budget, that there is no handouts. There is clear, transparent budget to show commitment to fiscal consolidation. The finance minister has announced a glide path, which means that it provides a lot of space for private sector to access funds. The government's borrowing program is modest. So I guess it is a very, very important step that the government has taken against challenging. There were temptations to announce people freebies, maybe, if I may say so. But the government has decided not to do that. And because the global environment is not good, and it has provided enough headroom so that should the global environment turn adverse, there is enough space to provide policy intervention and shield the economy from any adverse shocks.
You know, Surajit, when the goal and vision of government is clear, government moves on that path only. And the goal is very clear that by 2047, when India becomes 100 years old as an independent country, we would be completely developed nation and the third largest economy of the world. And we are possibly moving in the very right direction. But talking about fiscal management, do you see any concern about the fiscal deficit targets set in this budget?
No, these are very realistic targets. The revenue targets are very realistic. If you look at the direct tax revenues, the GST, they have all been growing, and it's a function of demand and the growth. So I guess if we are going to have 7% growth, the momentum of revenues will be maintained. And if you look at the way spending has been done, the restructuring of spending over the last few years in terms of the focus on outcomes, I guess these are very modest and realistic figures. And like I said, the government has preferred to keep some policy headroom should the global environment turn adverse, so that they can shield the growth process from any adverse shocks. So I guess these are realistic numbers.
And one of the most talked about sectors is the infrastructure development sector. How do you assess the allocation for infrastructure development in this budget?
Well, the government has maintained its capex. It has, post-COVID, it has been doing. It's an important component of the strategy of development. So I guess now the signal is that the private sector should start taking over and private investment cycle should kick in. But the government is not taking off its pedal, the foot from the pedal on its commitment to help infrastructure in this country. So I guess the focus on infrastructure spending will continue, but the government would like private sector to also step in and share some of the burden.
And also, what is your take on allocation for Manrega?
So Manrega is a demand-driven program, and the government has committed to provide enough funds as and when it is required. Manrega also needs some tweaks. As you would have seen, there are across states, there have been some reports of some sort of leakages. But I guess center and the states will work out, and the program has yielded results. And as and when it is required, the government will provide if more is required. So since it is a demand-driven program, so I think 86,000 crore has been provided. So I guess it should be comfortable for the time being. And as I said, we have to wait till July for a comprehensive budget to see what are the other steps that the government has plans to take.
What is your opinion about the provisions in this budget are likely to contribute to job creation and improving employment rates?
Well, if you look at all the steps, the amount of funds that have been allocated in different areas, whether you see all the Mudra Yojana, Vishwakarma Yojana, all the other steps that are being taken. So these will definitely, and after all, overall growth. So if growth increases, you will create employment opportunities as well. Well, the task is very huge across the country. But when investment takes place, when manufacturing units are set up, all this will fall into place and it will lead to some job creation. Plus, the new sunrise sectors which are coming in will also create jobs. For example, we don't take into account the job creation in the gig economy, all the entire gig economy. So I guess we have to look at employment in entirety and see the jobs being created in different sectors instead of being fixated by certain numbers. And it's a huge challenge, no doubt. And if growth continues at the rate at which we are growing, say 7%, which is very, very healthy given the global situation, I guess employment opportunities will also increase.
Thank you very much for talking to Akashvani.
Thank you.
You were listening to a discussion on Interim Budget 2024, Boosting Social Welfare. The participants were Surajit Gupta, Economic Analyst, and Harsh Ranjan, Anchor. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of Akashvani. You can listen to it on our mobile app, News on AIR. This program is also available on our YouTube channel, News on AIR Official. You may share your feedback about this program through email at airnsdtalks@gmail.com or WhatsApp on 9289094044.